Chapter 22 Balance of Terror. Elodie and 10 additional Marines burst into the brig, ready for a fight. A squad of military androids brought up the rear, equipped with submachine guns and coil guns. A pair of guards looked around to see what the commotion was. "Gunny, Sarge, where's the fire?" one of the guards asked. Elodie was confused. All 90 of the Marauder POWs were still in their cells. No prison break had ever occurred. "Who raised the alarm?" Elodie asked. "We heard there was a prisoner escape down here." The guards looked at each other, confused. "I made a routine call up to the bridge a few minutes ago, but it was just a status report," one of the guards said. "There's no prisoner escape here." Elodie felt her blood run cold. Somehow the bridge crew had been tricked. But who, and why, and how? Up on the bridge, Ino received a report. "Sensors have picked up the Kailasha," Mancini reported. "She's hiding under a cloaking field. Distance, half a kilometer." "They're close. Engage with the autocannons," Ino ordered. "And find the other enemy ship. It's still out there." Marathon opened fire with her own weapons, while the starfighters of Ashwinder Squadron reformed for another attack run. Meanwhile, the VWAX ships were keeping an eye open on the rest of the battle. "Marathon, this is Prima Nocta 1 Actual," a message came into the bridge. "Be advised, one of the Caravaneer ships is moving in our direction. It's the one that reported a slave revolt earlier. They are not responding to hails and are being escorted by one of the Destican frigates." "Shit," Sota said. "Some of the Desticans in the hold must have been loyal to Zilfalin. Prima Nocta, what's the status of Azarin?" "The Vivarium is entering a polar orbit around the Sanctuary Moon now," the squadron leader replied. Suddenly, a loud cheer from the weapons control station distracted Ino. "Oh, yeah, it's a hit!" one of the officers shouted. "Direct hit. Weapons impact confirmed on the Kailasha," Brisbane called up from the CIC. "Can we confirm they were destroyed?" Ino asked. "Scanning the wreckage now. Stand by," Brisbane replied. Ino redirected her attention to the screen. The battle had started properly now. The 2 Savanti corvettes that made up the local defense fleet had intercepted 2 more Destican frigates. That meant 4 out of 6 enemy ships were engaged. 2 enemy frigates are missing, Ino thought to herself. Where are they? I thought they were moving to attack the planet. "Captain, report on the debris," Brisbane called from the bridge of the CIC. "Insufficient mass. There's not enough wreckage here to account for a Tel Menaki-class frigate. Kailasha's still out there." "Hold on." "Stand by, bridge. We're picking up an energy signature from the debris field. Might be the Kailasha." Ino swore. "It's a trap! Veer off the strike craft and cloak us now!" "Marathon, this is Prima Nocta 1 Actual. We've detected a live quantum warhead in the wreckage." "Brace! Brace! Brace!" Sota yelled. A moment later, the quantum warhead detonated, roughly 500 meters away from Marathon. The vessel rocked violently, and Ino swayed on her feet. "Damage report!" "Shields are down, but the armor held," Sota said. "Cloaking sails are coming online now. We're going dark. Someone call the air boss and find out what happened to our starfighters." Marathon veered away from the spot where Kailasha had vanished, melting into the darkness of space as she went. The few surviving members of Ashwinder and Prima Nocta Squadron flew close to the carrier, hiding inside of her cloaking field. "Kill power to active sensors and divert power to passive sensors," Ino ordered. "We gotta find those bastards. Tell the starfighters to start a standard search pattern to our port and starboard flanks, and tell the Tupolev bomber squadrons to stand by for launch orders." "We could launch them now," EW Officer Mancini suggested. "I'm not detecting any conventional active scans, but I do see that directed energy beam again. I'll narrow down the origin point and give the bomber something to shoot at." At that moment, Elodie called the bridge. She spoke in German. "Captain, the brig is secure. There was never a prisoner escape in the first place." "What?" Ino and Sota responded. "That's what I said," Elodie's voice said through the speaker. "Listen, I pulled a lot of Marines out of position for this, so we can't stay. I'm sending everyone back to their battle stations now. As soon as Elodie finished her report, Acting Ensign Yamada raised her hand from the helm. Captain, we are really sluggish to starboard. I think we've lost some maneuvering thrusters. Was that the side facing the quantum explosion? Ino asked. Sota shook his head. No, it was our port side that was hit by the blast. The starboard thrusters should be fine. Ino furrowed her brow in thought. Both Kailasha and her escort had seemingly withdrawn after leaving a mine for Marathon to hit. And now they were using the directed energy beam instead of conventional anti-cloaking sensors. Why? Ino asked herself what else the directed energy beam could be used for besides making a Raj appear on the ship. Hell, what were any directed energy beams, such as lasers, used for? Painting targets. The words seemed to tumble into Ino's mind like a waterfall. Kailasha was painting Marathon, making her a visible target for someone else. Turn the active sensors back on, Ino ordered. Captain, enemy ships will be able to see us through the cloak if we do that, Mancini protested. They already can, Ino said. We're being painted. Scan for the other 2 Destican frigates, the ones who haven't been accounted for yet. A harsh voice spoke from behind her. That was clever, Esperanta, but you were too slow. She whirled around just in time to see Araj Zilfalin. He was smirking at her. You may hide your ship with cloaking fields, but your conscious minds shine in the darkness of the void like beacons. Primitives like yourselves cannot comprehend this. But fear not, you will learn. Araj vanished. Ah, shit! That directed energy beam is gone, Mancini said. Kailasha stopped projecting it. Forget that, we have a bigger problem, Crispin said over the intercom. Intruder alert! We've been boarded! A crewman just called the CIC to say they found a breaching pod latched onto a corridor in Deck 5. They found the breaching pod but no hostiles? Sota gasped. Ship-wide intruder alert, Ino called out. Axiom, Liechtenstein, secure the ship. Beninato, take a detail and help them out. Sota ordered Chief of the Watch Zhao Hui to follow him. They left the bridge and sealed the entrance behind them. About 50 kilometers above the surface of the sanctuary moon, the Vivarium flew through a shimmering aurora. In the command center, Astro Creator Azarin tapped a final series of commands into the computer while 3 UN Marines looked on. I don't like this. We should have been attacked by now, said Reza Agdashlu. I agree, but we must take advantage of the reprieve we've been given, Delegate told him. Come with me to the launch bay. We must make final preparations. Azarin reviewed her calculations, then watched a security camera feed as Delegate and the Marines moved all 42 of the torpedoes taken from Marathon into position. Delegate and the Marines left the launch bay, and as soon as the airlock was secured, Azarin started the launch sequence. Rapid terraforming sequence is initiated, Azarin said. Delegate, please contact our Savanti friends on the surface and tell them to start moving people into the shelters. The atmosphere will begin to transform momentarily. Yes, Astro Creator, Delegate replied. Once I launch the torpedoes, I must maintain a tight beam communications link with them until all are detonated, Azarin said. Under no circumstances can my control be interrupted. Otherwise, the fine-tuning and necessary adjustments will not be possible. Torpedo 1 away! The first torpedo rocketed out of the vivarium, turned around, and started burning retrograde, canceling out its forward momentum until it started to fall into the sanctuary moon's atmosphere. From his command center at the South Pole, Oracle Drex Aster watched as the vivarium started to launch torpedoes. The terraforming process had begun. Meanwhile, the human warship and local defense fleet were fighting 4 of the Destican frigates. 4? The Oracle paused to think. He distinctly remembered that 6 enemy warships had entered the system. He could see 2 of them fighting Marathon, 2 more escorting the Caravaneer ship that was now under Destican control, but the last 2 were missing. The Oracle realized that despite all of Ino Esperanta's planning, the enemy was not going to behave according to her predictions. The Oracle spoke to his circle of advisors, announcing his intention to become the Overlord. In human societies, this would be equivalent to a democratically elected leader seizing dictatorial power. The cyberized government of the Savanti people allowed the transition from democratic to authoritarian control and back again to be smooth and seamless. Oracle Aster was escorted to the military command center, where he was installed into a biomechanical combat computer, one that was normally used to direct the Savanti armed forces. A few lines of code were changed, an update packet transmitted to all Savanti in the area, and the transfer of power was complete. For the duration of this emergency, the computerized democracy of Savasia was suspended, and Overlord Aster had full control. As soon as the Overlord had control of the planetary defense systems, he set about preparing ground-to-space missiles for launch. He had examined every possible course of action the enemy could take, and was acting based on which outcome was most likely. "Captain, I'm detecting ground-to-space missile launches from the Sanctuary Moon," Mancini yelled. "Savanti authorities are sending us a message that an attack on the vivarium is imminent." "Marathon is too far away," Ino yelled. "Launch starfighters." Navigator Raha looked at Ino with an expression of terror on his face. "Vivarium is almost a light minute away from us," he said. "That's about 300,000 kilometers. None of our strike craft have enough fuel to get there and come back." "I know," Ino said, "but we have to do something." Down in the hangar bay, Air Boss Lee Tai got the order to send fighter support to Vivarium just before the battle reached her. She grabbed her roster of fighter squadrons and ran out of her office just as a team of Space Marines arrived. "Desticans, behind us!" panted Hermione Durand. "It's a full party. We've found at least 15 breaching pods so far, but Axiom says a few more just landed. They've got us from behind when our shields were down. They're on decks 5, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and 21. You've got about 20 hostile troops coming here to the hangar, so do what you've got to do before we barricade the door." Hermione summoned a group of military androids and started to fortify the hangar. Meanwhile, Tai summoned a MiG-95 squadron leader. Commander Dylan Kelly was the leader of a squadron called Kelly's Wolfpack. They were waiting in reserve for orders to join the battle. Commander Kelly looked eager as he approached. He wanted to fight. "I have a mission for you and your boys," said Tai. "Destican ships are moving against the Vivarium. Marathon can't get there in time, and our missile batteries don't have the range." The eager smile slowly started to slip away from Commander Kelly's face. Like Tai, he was doing the math in his head. "It's almost a full light second from here to Vivarium," said Commander Kelly. "At minimum, we'd have only 2 minutes of time over target, and then we'd run out of fuel long before we made it back to the Marathon." "I know," Tai said grimly. "Even if we do succeed, we'd have to choose between ejecting over a toxic world or waiting in a dead fighter for someone to find us," Commander Kelly said. "You're sending us to our deaths." "I know," Tai repeated, "but this has got to be done. If we lose Vivarium, we're all dead." Commander Kelly shook Tai's hand, and the pair shared a dark look. "If I were you, I'd give Vivarium at least 5 minutes of TOT, Tai whispered. "Take your chances with the planet below. If Azerin succeeds, the air will be breathable in a couple of days." "Small comforts, right?" Commander Kelly replied. "Good luck, Lee. And you." Commander Kelly left, shouting for all of the pilots in his squadron to gather for a final pre-flight briefing. Meanwhile, Tai checked in on Hermione. "Destican's in the corridor now," Hermione reported. "They're trying to break into the hangar." "You need to keep them out until that squadron launches," Tai said. pointing at the nearby row of MiG-95s. "Aye, we can do that," Hermione said. "But it would be a hell of a lot easier if I had a few more hands. Axiom's got his hands full right now." Ty turned around and shouted into the hangar. "Ground crew! Anyone who isn't launching those MiGs needs to arm themselves!" The ship's AI fought with cold calculations. Internal sensor sweep every 2 seconds. External sensors on the off seconds. Gather position of friendly and hostile forces. Employ force to neutralize invaders. Status check. 83 military androids were still functional, including the decoy. During this constant stream of calculations and data processing, Axiom was able to remind himself to observe the enemy boarding party for anyone who might be an officer or commander. Soon, he found one. A group of Desticans had taken control of a fuel pump station underneath a maneuvering thruster. They had turned it into their ad hoc command center. Among this group was an older Destican male, dressed in the clothing normally reserved for shaman of the Astral Fellowship. Axiom was not an organic life form. He did not think about the concept of telepathy in the same way as his human crewmates, unlike Ino. He was far more willing to explore the possibility of telepathy being real. Axiom sent a signal to the military androids, nearly all of whom were currently fighting the Destican invaders throughout the ship. The synthetic fighters began to redeploy themselves to new fighting positions. Axiom was trying to ensure that the Destican invaders would spot the fake Ino and report her to the shaman. While Axiom strategized like a chess master, the Marathon rotated on her longitudinal axis, aiming the hangar bays away from Kailasha and its escort. A squadron of 12 MiG-95 starfighters launched from Marathon and immediately kicked on their afterburners, shooting toward the Sanctuary Moon as quickly as possible.
Destiny is hard to meet. It'll hunt you down somewhere along the way. Don't you see we're meant to be the prodigies that came to show the way? 'Cause I don't wanna rule the world alone. None of us can make it on our own. I'm screaming but I cannot hear a sound. The suffocation slowly comes around.